Now that we have completed boxes in 1-point linear perspective, we are going to practice drawing letters in 1-point perspective. So each time you create a perspective drawing, the first thing you need to do is establish your horizon line. We're working with a 7-inch square. This might look a little different than the size that I'm working with on the screen. Your square is 7 inches, so you need to measure down 3.5 inches on the right side and the left side of the square and make a mark. Next, you connect these two marks with a horizontal line to create the horizon line. Finally, you want to mark your vanishing point. Measure over on your line halfway into the center of your square, which would be 3.5 inches either from the right or the left, and make a dot. This dot is your vanishing point, and you can mark it with VP to remind you it's your vanishing point.
So now that I've established my vanishing point and my horizon line, I'm going to go ahead and draw the block letter of O in the top left corner. So I'm going to just freehand the shape of my O. As you might have already learned, I like to make short, quick pencil lines to create the general shape that I want to have. And then I just follow around the inside of that shape to create the inside of my block letter O. Okay, then for my bottom letter E, I can, if I wanted to be more precise, so I want to make sure my lines are parallel, so I'm going to go ahead and line up my ruler there with the top edge of my square. I'm going to go ahead and draw a nice nice 2.5 inch line there, and then I'm going to bring my ruler over and I'm going to add another nice vertical line, and I can even start by creating a rectangle. Again, I'm lining up my ruler with the side of my square to make sure I have a nice parallel line. So I started with a rectangle, then I can come in here and draw my E. Very precisely if I wanted to. Okay, so now I have my E. I'm going to get rid of my extra lines that I no longer need. So I just have my block letter E. Okay. So my next step, once I have my initial shape that I want to start with, I need to do my corner check. If you remember that from the last video, that's when I check each of my corners to see if I can connect to my vanishing point without running into my original shape. So I'm going to go ahead and start here with the top right corner of my E, and yes, I can connect to my vanishing point without running into my E, so I go ahead and add that line of convergence. So then I move to my next corner point here on the top left corner of my E. I can add that line without running into my letter E. I move down to the bottom left corner, connect back to my vanishing point without running into my E. Now I move to my bottom right corner. If we look, I'm going to run through my E, so I don't want to add my line of convergence here. So I move to my next corner point and I look, and I can add a little bit of a line, but as soon as I hit my letter E, I stop. Okay, I come over to this corner point, nope, can't add it, I'll run into my E. I check this corner point, nope, can't add it, I'd go through my E. I check this corner point, nope, same thing. What about this one here? I can. Same thing like the one below. I can add it until I hit my letter E and then I stop. I check this one. Nope. I'd run through my E. I check here. No, I'd run through my E. And I check this one. Nope. I'd run through my E. So I've added all the lines of convergence that I can to my letter E. Now for my O, there aren't any corners. So what I want to do is find the bottom leftmost corner to add my line of convergence. So if this were my bottom line here, I'm going to line up with my vanishing point, and I'm going to move my ruler until I see the very last point of my letter O, and that's where I'm going to add my line of convergence. Same thing with the top part of my O. I'm going to line up with my vanishing point, and I'm just going to rotate my ruler until I find the top rightmost point of my letter, and then I'll connect it back to my line of convergence. Okay, so the next thing that I need to do is I need to add a curve inside of my O. So this would be as if I were drawing a smaller O that stays inside that line of convergence, those two lines of convergence that I drew, that overlaps with that original block letter O. And I want this to stay a block letter, so again, I can follow around the inside of that outline to create my block letter. Now that I have the back side of my O and the inside of my O, I'm going to go ahead and clean up my unneeded lines. So this is the front of my O, so I don't want to be able to see the back O coming through it. I want to keep this front block O the way it is. This line here, I actually wouldn't be able to see because the inside of my O would be hiding that back part of my O. But I do want to leave this inside here because this would be my negative space inside of my block letter. I want to keep my line of convergence, so from the right corner here of my back O all the way to where it connects, that's going to be the top of my shape. So I'm going to go ahead and erase what's inside of there. I won't be able to see these lines here because they're going to be hidden by the side of my O. I do want to keep the bottom line of convergence here with my O. Now anything outside this back part of my O is unneeded. So I'm going to go ahead and erase those two lines of convergence. So now if I look at my O, I see the front of my block letter, the inside of my block letter, and the outside of my block letter. Now I'm going to go ahead and move on to my E. Like my cube, I need to add some parallel lines to show where the back of the letter stops. So I go ahead and line up my ruler with the top of my square and with the back vertical line of my E, and I slide it over however deep I want the E to zoom back into space, and I add a parallel line that's the same, that's parallel to the back side of my E. Now I need to add a parallel line that's parallel to the top of my E. So I go ahead and line up with the outside edge of my square, line up with the top of my E, and I move it upwards. And I draw another parallel line. Now that I have all of these lines to create my E in 1 point perspective, I need to get rid of the extra lines. So I no longer need these lines of convergence outside of my E in 1 point perspective, so I go ahead and erase them. And now my E is complete. So this is how you draw an O and an E in 1 point perspective.